Good day. Since the other literature review are discussed by Benjad, I'm going to discuss the narrative review. A narrative review offers a broad and descriptive synthesis of the literature, often used to uncover patterns, emerging trends, and research gaps without adhering to strict methodological rules. Unlike systematic reviews, it allows flexibility in selecting and interpreting studies, making it useful for exploring diverse perspectives or comparing different schools of thought. The the keywords here are the broad and descriptive synthesis of the literature, patterns, emerging trends, and research gaps without adhering to strict methodological rules. This is because, as the name suggests, it is obvious that, as the name suggests, a narrative refers to telling a story. A narrative review is a type of literature review that presents studies in a descriptive, story like manner. It is often introduced to first year college students as a general approach to studying a topic. The main goal is to summarize a few studies that describe a problem or area of interest. Unlike systematic reviews, narrative reviews do not have a specific research question or a detailed search plan. There is no strict method or protocol to follow, and no standards guide which studies should be included. Because of this, while narrative reviews help the reviewer understand a problem, they usually do not provide a complete picture of all the research on the topic. In addition, according to Farrington and Jolliffe, narrative reviews are sometimes considered less rigorous than systematic reviews, which carefully locate, evaluate, and summarize evidence to answer a clearly defined question. In the past, the narrative reviews were criticized because it was often unclear how or why certain studies were chosen, which could lead to bias. But despite of these limitations, narrative reviews can still be useful when conducted because when conducted thoughtfully, they can complement other types of reviews or even serve as a method to summarize qualitative research. Here, I found on Google that the most contrasting types of literature reviews are narrative reviews and systematic reviews. These two are often compared because they represent very different approaches to reviewing literature, and the contrast highlights their respective strengths and weaknesses. As can be seen in the picture, a narrative review looks at a broad topic, summarizing studies in a descriptive or story like manner. The sources used may not be clearly listed, and the selection of studies or sources is often not well defined, which can introduce bias. The quality evaluation of the included studies can vary, and the synthesis, which is the process of connecting all the studies together to find patterns or trends, is mostly qualitative and in that it explains ideas rather than providing numerical analysis. So as a result, the inferences drawn from narrative reviews are sometimes based on evidence but not always. In contrast, a systematic review focuses on a specific research question and uses a comprehensive and clearly defined research strategy to locate all relevant studies. Studies are selected according to set criteria to ensure fairness and reduce bias. Each study is carefully evaluated for quality, and the synthesis often involves quantitative analysis, such as combining data in a meta analysis. Lastly, the conclusions or inferences in a systematic review are usually based on strong evidence from the selected studies. Let's use this features the example. Let's say the narrative review. Let's say this research is about stress among college students. In terms of question, the review looks at a broad topic such as stress among college students rather than a specific research question. Now, the aim is to understand common stresses, coping strategies, and effects on academic performance. While for source, the student gathers sources that seem relevant, but there is no formal or comprehensive search. Some studies may be missed, and the choice of sources could introduce bias. For the selection, studies are chosen based on interest or perceived importance rather than clear criteria. For example, the student might select articles that highlight causes of stress, health effects, and coping methods without following a set protocol. For the evaluation, the quality of the studies is not consistently assessed. Some sources may be peer-reviewed research, while others could be less rigorous, such as opinion pieces or small surveys. For the synthesis, they reorganizes the findings descriptively by themes, explaining patterns and ideas. So you can. This is so very familiar because we often use narrative review in our past research. For example, for the synthesis, the student might summarize that academic workload is a major stressor, social support helps reduce stress, and poor sleep negatively affects performance. So there is little or no quantitative analysis there. Lastly, for the inference, conclusions are drawn based on the studies reviewed, but they may not represent the full state of research. For instance, the student might conclude that stress management programs are helpful, though this inference is based only on the selected studies and not on all available evidence. Now, moving on to the historical review. This review focuses on examining research throughout a period of time. It often starts with an issue, concept, or theory which emerged in literature and then traces its evolution. Reviewers use the sources of information like raw materials and then fashion them into events to assemble a historical argument. The keyword here is examining research throughout a period of time. So, a historical review is a type of literature review that looks at how a topic, idea, or theory has developed over time. It usually starts with the first time the topic appeared in research and then shows how it has changed and grown. This kind of a review helps to understand the history of a subject and how past research has influenced current knowledge. Although historical reviews often follow a timeline, they can also be organized by themes, showing how certain aspects of the topic have evolved. Researchers use different sources as raw materials and combine them to create a clear story or argument about the topic. That is according to Roberts. Note that the main goal is to give context for current research, show important changes or milestones, and point out gaps where further study is needed. Furthermore, historical reviews are especially helpful in subjects like history, humanities, and social sciences in general, where understanding how ideas have changed is very important. Even in other fields, looking at the history of research can give useful insights because few topics exist without some background from earlier studies. Now, the question is when to use it. Well, a historical review is best when trying to understand how ideas have progressed over time and when identifying important changes or turning points in a field. For example, let's see this picture. As a historical review could explore how teaching methods have changed. It might start with traditional classroom teaching, then look at the introduction of multimedia tools, and finally focus on modern digital and technology-based learning. So you can see how education has evolved and helps guide future research. Lastly, the argumentative review. This type of literature review examines literature in a selective way in order to address a specific argument, assumption, or philosophical standpoint that is firmly established in the literature, typically with the goal of developing an alternative viewpoint. So, an argument literature review is a type of review that looks at selected ideas, studies, and articles to support or challenge a specific idea or belief instead of summarizing everything written about a topic. This review also focuses only on the studies that are relevant to the argument being made. The main goal is to build a strong case for a new idea or to question an existing one. For example, in language studies, an argumentative literature review might explore the claim that digital tools improve language learning. The researcher could review studies showing that apps, online exercises, and virtual classrooms help learners improve vocabulary and speaking skills. At the same time, studies pointing out the limitations of digital tools, such as lack of interaction or cultural context, would also be examined. By comparing these findings, the researcher could argue that digital tools are useful but most effective when combined with traditional classroom instruction. Another example in social linguistics could focus on the debate about code switching in multilingual classrooms. Some studies may argue that code switching hinders language development, while others claim it supports comprehension and participation. Now, an argument literature review would analyze these conflicting perspectives to propose a balanced understanding, suggesting when and how code switching can be a helpful teaching strategy. Now, given the mentioned examples, this type of literature review is often used in social science research, such as studies about education, immigration, or public policy. It works like a lawyer presenting evidence, only the most relevant information is chosen to support a point or to argue against a widely accepted idea. In short, let's summarize the three. The argumentative review critically examines selected literature to support or refute a particular viewpoint or hypothesis. The historical review explores the development and evolution, let's remember that, of a particular topic or concept over time, while the narrative review it synthesizes the literature to identify patterns, trends, and gaps in research. That's all